You could have two people that don't like your writing, and you could have a million people who absolutely adore everything that you put out.
And that will pay in full cash money for your book. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of Dads on Purpose, the podcast. I'm your host, Josh Ashford, man, and this show is all about helping dads be the best versions of themselves. And today we got my boy Steve in here. Steve, what's going on, man?
What's going on? I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm good. How do you introduce yourself, man? Because I was going to introduce them, but then I was going to let you introduce yourself. So how do you introduce yourself to the world?
I'm just Steve. I'm a regular guy, regular dad, regular guy.
I was literally trying to set you up. I was waiting for Steve. He was like, I'm Steve with edit. Steve with edit this. Okay, what's that?
Yes, I always say he's trying to. I'm just trying to be a normal guy, but yes. So I always just say, hey everybody, I'm Steve with edit this.
Edit what?
Edit this.
What's that?
I'm so glad you asked. It's corny, but it works.
It is corny as hell,
and it grows on you.
It's like fungus.
Yes, it grows on you.
Yeah. So Steve he's being humble. So Steve, you handle anything with the written word, right?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
And so the reason I want to have you on is because I'm a firm believer. Most people don't understand. People don't realize is that I'm actually a published author. Like I got a book out there. You know what I'm saying? If you want to look on Amazon, it's all of 48 pages. So
it's a book.
Yeah.
And I applaud you for that.
Yeah. But I'm a big fan though of everybody has a story within them. Right. And I think dads out there, man, as dads, we don't talk about our feelings. And then two, we have all this knowledge that nobody wants to listen to. Right. And so we have this outlet. We can write a book or a blog or something like that. And I really want to help people with that process. And that's kind of why I wanted to have you on. People are like, what's this guy going to come on here and talk about? He has a book because he writes, and it's called Write Like You Mean It. Yeah. And where can they find it? That was a plug.
That was a plug. Thank you. You can pretty much find it anywhere. I've got them in the back seat of my car. They're on Amazon.
Pause. That's like we got a buddy. His name's Tom, and Tom sells batteries. Yep. And Tom's just like, yeah, we got an office, here in the back of my Suburban. Tom,
I was thinking about that when I said it too.
Nobody's coming to your Suburban. That's weird. So
well, if you meet me around town, I have plenty of copies. That's a better way of saying it, right? And I'm also it's fully distributed. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, pretty much anywhere that you can find books.
I mean, we're international. I say we, it's just me. I'm international.
Anywhere you can find books online, you can find this book. And I'm pretty excited about it. It's my passion. It's everybody's got a book in them, right? And I've had a book in myself for a very long time. And, I finally pulled the trigger a couple of years ago and started the process, and I got it published back in September. So I'm pretty excited about it.
What's that process look like? Like to start writing a book, what does that look like?
Well, I mean, simply enough, it's for me, it was sitting down and actually just starting the process and committing myself to that journey, because I think a lot of people get overwhelmed by the idea, and dads fall into this too, where, well, man, I've got 2 or 3 books in my head actually that I want to write, but I'm overwhelmed because I know that you can't just knock out a book in a day. It takes time. It's a process. And so you've got to, from the very beginning, I think you have to commit yourself to the idea that, hey, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to start today. Yeah. I'm going to have a process as far as how I can work this into my personal life, my professional life, and I can get it done. And that's what I did. I started and I just started writing one day, and then one chapter led to the next, and then it led to the next. And I was very selfish with my time when I wasn't with my family, of course, to just make sure that I was keeping myself on track, holding myself accountable, told other people that I was writing the book so that other people could say, hey, how much further along are you on the book?
Oh, that's good. I love accountability.
Yeah, that was huge for me. A lot of our friends do that currently on Facebook now. Like if they're working out and they start a new workout routine, well, what do? They
shout out to John Model.
Yeah, they post their stuff on Facebook, and it's a great accountability tool. And you can do the same thing with a book. You just tell a few people, especially those that are in your corner 100%, and they want to see you succeed. I'm blessed to have so many people, an amazing, unlimited number of people in my corner who just want to see me succeed.
You're welcome, first of all. For that support.
Yeah.
So 100%. what would you? So you sit down, you commit to the process, like you started writing. Mm-hmm. What about the person that doesn't really like me? I'm not a writer. Sure. Like I don't write, but I can talk all day long. Mm-hmm. And so I guess what does that process look like for someone if they want to record, like they want to write a book, but they start just doing the audio, like where I think I know the answer. Can they get that transcribed? But do they need to go to an editor after that? Or like what's that process look like?
Well, the first step is recording yourself. If you're not, if you don't feel confident in your writing skills initially, recording is a great way to make sure that you're not losing those great ideas. You're getting them recorded. You can use your phone, or you can buy yourself a little handheld thing, and as you're driving down the road, or you're sitting in a waiting room somewhere at the doctor or a car dealership, and you're just waiting, you can sit there and you can formulate ideas, talk to yourself. Exactly. And then there's great transcription software out there, so you can plug stuff in and you can get a great transcription software, and it'll do the whole thing for you.
Really? How much does cost?
Of course. Well, there's some that are free. They're not very good, and then there's others like. Well,
if I'm writing a book, I don't want sure, not good.
Exactly. Well, this is not going to probably be what you expected, but I actually prefer. I'm a writer, granted, but I prefer when I do record myself or I'm recording interviews or what have you, to not use transcription software. I actually find it beneficial to sit there and let the recording go and type it out. And I'm not focused on grammar. I'm not focused on run-on sentences or anything like that. I'm literally typing everything out. And the reason why I like doing that is because it brings all of those ideas that I was just kind of blurting out there to myself or a conversation. It brings it all back to the front of my mind, and I'm able to group ideas together. Because conversations such as this one's going to ultimately do, they're going to kind of go everywhere, right? So you may start off talking about one thing in a good way.
I was like, I'm pretty good host.
In a good way. But you can start off talking about one thing and you're typing up an idea, and then it goes a different direction, but you're still typing. And then you come back to that original idea. You can move that stuff up, so you can start grouping your ideas together. That's going to help you as far as creating outlines, chapters for a potential book. Just a stream of consciousness, just ideas. And then once you get to that point, then you can make decisions on, okay, do I feel a little bit more comfortable as far as just starting the writing process? It's not like you're being graded. Nobody's watching. It's just you and your computer. So just start typing stuff out and start trying to create something. I work with a lot of individuals who will do stuff like that, and they claim that, look, I'm not a great writer. I'm not a good writer at all. The grammar is gonna be horrible. Stuff's gonna be out of whack. There might be plot holes in here, all that sort of stuff. But they've got a pretty solid, opening and just a solid batch of text, basically. And so then they bring me in to kind of read it, make sense of it, ask some questions. So there's people out there that can help you from a ghostwriting perspective, such as myself. There's family, friends who can read your content, and they can say, okay, this is where I'm confused. I like where you're going. You should talk about this more. This is what's going to resonate with readers more. Things like that.
I like that.
That there's a bunch of different options. I think people get overwhelmed by the process, and then what happens is they get tunnel vision, and they don't open their mind to the idea that not everything has to be picture perfect. You just want to get everything out there, and before you know it,
that's a life lesson. For you guys listening.
I got 25 years invested in this career as writing and being a writer and an editor. I've helped other people with their books. I've never written my own book until now. And so when I sat down to write, I didn't necessarily, I had a general idea of the topic, obviously, and where I was going to go, but I just started writing and worked with what came natural to me.
You know what? I got a coach. Shout out to Coach Val, if you're out there listening. She's written 3 books. I think she's probably written 4 right now. And she's so funny because she's like, I don't care and then this is just her personal opinion, because you can hire ghostwriters and people like Steve and things like that. That's fantastic. But if you don't care, just take Coach Val's words. And she would always say, she's like, I don't care what people think about my book. If there's punctuations missing, she was like, they got to pay to find out. that's a great outlook. She's like, they got to pay to find the punctuation. So she's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
She's like, that's just, but she has.
Hey, if they point out a punctuation or a grammar mistake in chapter 8, hey, they've read 7 chapters already. They're at least finding some sort of value
Facts.
in their book.
But you know what though? So like your book, like it's like, how many pages is this? Like
140.
Okay. Not bad. Yeah. 140, 150. My book is 48 pages. It's written for high school students.
Sure.
I think half of it is a study guide. Coach Val, hers is like, she does a lot with like teachers and high school teens. It's like, 50 things to not do to, help your kids flunk out.
Sure.
Right. And so every page is a lesson. And I think she does front to back, but it's like the size of a pocketbook. And that's her whole book. Sure. Like it's not, I think people overcomplicate like what your book has to be, right? Like
yes, they also think that it has to be incredibly long. They think it's going to be this 500 page, 800 page,
This Ray, sorry, I'm reading Ray Dalio's 500 page book right now.
Yeah.
It's like something, I forget what it's called, The Changing of the World Order, something like that. And I'm like, golly, I bought the book, and then Audible gave me a free 3 months. So I just bought the audio. So I'm not reading 500 pages.
Well, your book can be whatever length that you that it ends up being. I always say right to the subject, right to the content, whatever it's going to take.
Yeah.
To get the message across. It may be 48 pages. It may be 265. I don't know. Get your ideas out there. Write it, because you're not going to, unless you're Coach Val, you're not going to go and publish your first draft, right?
No.
So you're going to get whatever it is out there, and then you can go back and you can fine tune it. Maybe you're going to add more to it. You may also end up taking stuff away.
Well, so you're jumping ahead, because that was my next. So like, I want to walk people through this process. So you commit to it, you sit down, you write it or you record it and you transcribe it. So once you do that, you just mentioned that we have the first draft, and then what do we do? I think we mentioned, like, you talked about having family and friends reading and things like that.
When I had my first draft done, I immediately created a short list of people that I felt like would be willing to read the book from start to finish, good, bad, indifferent. They may have thought it was trash. They may have thought it great. I don't know. But I created a short list of people. Yeah. And I said, okay, I'm going to give this book to them. I'm going to let them read it. And I'm going to accept any and all criticism.
Like, did you read my book? Yeah, it's in the trash.
But I was very intentional about who I gave it to. Okay. I gave it to mentors. Okay. I gave it to other writers. And I also gave it to people who I know just from knowing them for years. They don't read a whole lot of books, and they're dang sure if they're going to read a book, they're not going to pick up something like this typically. Because I wanted to see with those individuals whether or not it would hold their attention.
Yeah, I was about to say, so if you're looking at different writers and things like that, or mentors, they might be in that same space, but
pick somebody outside.
I was about to say, your book is not necessarily meant for them. Like your book is meant for,
well, yeah, it's
dads.
It's really meant for anybody. I mean, obviously the primary audience are writers from aspiring writers all the way up to individuals that have 20 or 30 years invested.
Is it really?
Yeah. Well, because you're constantly learning as a writer. There's different ways that you can go about perfecting your craft. And sometimes, again, we get tunnel vision and we get used to doing things the same way. It's kind of like you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Same thing with writers. Sometimes you get used to a certain way of doing things and you think it's the right way. Then you pick up a book like this and you're like, wow, that's such a simplistic tip that he just threw out there. But yeah, I've never thought of doing that before. So then they go back and they start incorporating that into their life. Beyond writers, though, I said it's good for anybody. It's great for business development, personal development. It's great for just understanding proper storytelling, because everybody's got a story, right?
Yeah.
Which you said earlier. So I really feel like this book can benefit anybody who is wanting to learn how to communicate better, be a better storyteller, get their ideas out there in whatever format that works for them.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. So now going back to not you, but everybody else.
So,
because it's not about you.
So
it's about them.
So I shared it with all these people, and I got all the necessary feedback.
Yeah.
Some of it was just very basic, like, I loved it. I think you're doing a great job. You should go find a publisher now. Huh. And then there was others who was like, well, why didn't you talk about this? You totally left out a chapter on editing or whatever the heck it was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're right. Because when you get into it, you get into the weeds and it's your project and your baby and all that sort of stuff. Sometimes it's hard to see, what
did it say? The forest through the trees, trees through the forest,
trees through the forest, forest through the trees.
You're the wordsmith. I'm just the guy.
You get the point. Everybody gets the point. It's hard to see the end, what you're missing.
Yeah.
And so that was very eye-opening for me. And I was like, wow, that's great. So I ended up adding like 1 or 2 chapters because of that feedback.
That's good.
Once I got the feedback, to make a long story short, then I felt confident after I'd made those changes and read through it probably 2 or 3 more times to go seek out a publisher. People will go the self-publishing route, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted, because of the topic and the industry, I wanted to go with a publisher. Ended up finding a hybrid publisher in Dallas called Brown Books.
Okay.
Gave them the manuscript. And everybody hears horror stories, by the way. They say, oh, well, they've got like 10, 15 rejection letters from publishing companies.
Yeah.
Or you got to go through a literary agent. I didn't do any of that stuff.
You're using really big words.
Yes, really big.
Are you saying manuscript and literacy?
Literary agent is somebody. It's kind of like
what's a manuscript?
A manuscript is your first draft.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, basically it's your initial project. Literary agent, think of like a sports agent for, Tom Brady's agent or something.
Okay.
Many traditional publishers only want to work through they only want to hear from the literary agent. They're not going to talk to the author.
Really?
Yeah, directly.
Why?
Good question.
Okay. Anyways, keep going.
I didn't deal with any of that stuff.
Okay.
I called Brown Books Publishing in Dallas and said, hey, I've got a manuscript. This is what it's about. I'd love to talk to you about it. Ended up getting the owner on the phone. How lucky am I?
Was it during COVID?
Yes.
Because there's nobody else there.
That's a great point. How lucky was I? So she said, yes, we'd love to take a look at it. So I sent it to her. Mm-hmm. A week later, I hear back and they're like, we'd love to pursue this with you. And so through that process with them, I ultimately ended up having to add 4 new chapters to the book. So you talk about a book can be whatever, it can be 48 pages. It could be 626 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
My book, was probably about 30,000 words ish.
How many chapters is that? How many pages is that?
How many pages? I'm not sure. But at the beginning, it was probably 10 chapters. It ended up being 14 when we were all done and around 50,000 words.
But you said it's 150 pages, so it's probably like 100 word or 100 pages.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
That's
I don't.
Okay.
I'm breaking it down.
Breaking it down
because
I understand.
I hate reading, but I love audiobooks. Like I love listening.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Anyway.
So that was my process, and the process is different for everybody.
Yeah, I was about to say, because what if we're COVID's over, quote unquote, and like now people are going back in the office. So if I'm not that lucky and I want to go the self-publishing route, like where can I go? Because I think I don't even know the name of my publisher, like who I went through. I did my own. It's through Amazon, and they have their own. I don't even know what it's called. I get a royalty check. That's all I know.
So Kindle Direct Publishing, Amazon, all that sort of stuff are self-publishing routes that you can go. You can literally write a book today or finish a book today, and you could get it uploaded and do the whole process by tomorrow. But you're also responsible for everything that goes with it. Cover design, making sure everything's formatted correctly.
Which you can find all of that on Fiverr.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
But make sure you pick the right people. And if that's
they can hire me.
Oh, will you do the? Well, I'm not the formating, but you'll do the cover,
the editing piece of it.
Yeah. So you'll do the editing,
proofreading, and all that stuff.
But you want someone to get do a decent cover design and things like that.
There's people out there all over the place.
Fiverr. They're not paying me for this, but I'm just letting them know.
You can find people all over the place that do that sort of stuff.
Make sure that they check the resources. Make sure they're legit.
The bottom line is that even if you're
there's people.
Yeah, there's people. So even if you're self-publishing, you want to make sure that you're putting forth the best possible product.
Yep.
For your readers.
Exactly.
So So there's options like that you can do. And believe it or not, you can still get in contact with literary agents and publishers and stuff like that. They've got staff that, and if you've got a topic or an idea for a book that they're interested in, it's not very hard to pique their interest if you've got a really cool story.
I like that.
Yeah.
So I want to switch gears a little bit.
Sure.
Because obviously this podcast is specifically for dads. I want to talk about, helping our kids and because we talked about this right before we came on, just like helping them express themselves, because I personally believe that kids have a story in them too, even at that age. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know, is that like, how do you guide, why is it so important to help like our kids develop that side, that creative side, that wordsmith, that storytelling and things like that? And then two, how do we do it? So why, and then how, if you have any insight on that?
Well, it's important because kids especially have an incredible imagination.
God, they do.
Right from the very beginning. So you need to be able to take advantage of that and make them realize that is something that you want to encourage, that and however which way that they want to express it. And you want to make sure that you're providing an outlet to them and making sure that they know that they can do that sort of thing. It's interesting that we're talking about all of this because our youngest son, we have a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old. Our 10-year-old, for a while, has been expressing himself through, like when he gets upset, he's expressing himself through anger. Doesn't really, he'll scream and shout. He doesn't really always know exactly how to express himself. Or
that sounds really fun.
Yeah. He's a boy. And so, but my wife and I have been really working with him, especially during the summer, on getting him to express himself through writing, sitting down, just tell us a story, write us a story, tell it, it can be whatever you want, bud, just do something.
Yeah.
And then once he writes it, take the time as a parent to sit down, read it, and get excited about it. Have the child read it to you. See how they, ask them how they came up with that, or what, ask them questions along the way, and say, well, what about this? Be engaged in the conversation with them is really a great idea. And it's working wonders with us. And it was a new tactic, surprisingly, for us, because we were just trying to tell him, hey, calm the heck down. What are you doing? Yeah. Chill out. But we realized that he's got some stuff inside that he needs to, it's not all about, my big brother's being mean to me. Okay, well, tell us, write us something, channel your imagination and what you're trying to get out in a different way.
Yeah.
And once we got him to sit down and we put him in his own environment, which I think is great too, let him sit wherever he wants, whether it's in his room or it's at the kitchen table or in the living room.
That's good.
If he wants crayons or he wants markers or he wants to use your favorite pen, whatever. My son in particular loves taking. I love that. He loves taking printer paper out of my printer in my office. He wants that paper.
Oh, I thought he just likes taking it out and throwing it.
No, he takes it and he'll draw and he'll do all different types of stuff. So I'll say, we'll give him that type of paper. So we put him in a zone where he feels incredibly comfortable, and then we just let him do his thing. We walk away. We don't stand over his shoulder or anything like that. Let him express himself. And then, like I said earlier, he'll come back. He'll either read it to us. My wife will read it, or I'll read it. Yeah. If we don't understand it, then we'll say, what are you trying to say here? Yeah. I can't read this. What's this word?
Yeah.
Which also helps out with penmanship and all that other stuff, which I feel like needs to be pushed a lot more in the younger generation, because he tends to write really big. So he'll write one sentence and take up an entire page.
Of course he does.
So I'm like, dude, let's bring it down smaller. Let's focus on, penmanship and all that sort of stuff. Just fine tuning it.
It sounds like you're kind of walking him through the process of what you did on your book, whereas, you're asking friends and things like that to kind of review it, but it's a little different. One, you're encouraging, the creativity side, but then at the same time, you're also acting as that first rough draft editor I don't know, what's it called? Manuscript reader?
Manuscript, yeah.
Golly.
Initial rough draft.
Yeah. And so I love that, man. I didn't even like, I love like the fact how you said, like, you set him up in his own space and like let him work. Kind of like you said, you know, yourself with your time and you get in your zone to do what you need to do. And you guys are really creating that opportunity for him to flourish.
Because with my creative time, it's either extremely early in the morning or real late at night after the family's all gone to bed, because I can focus.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm in my clearest, most creative moments.
Yeah.
And so you owe it to your kids to be able to allow them to do the same thing and express themselves. And then, you know, we can, as grownups, for the most part, where we can take constructive criticism. With the kids, with the kids, it's a little bit different. You want to walk that line where you're encouraging as much as humanly possible, and just basically tell them, you're doing a great job. I really love where you're going with this, and things like that. So that you don't destroy their confidence. You know, one thing, and I mentioned it in my shaking the screen.
I just messed it up.
One thing that I mentioned in my book, when I was younger, I didn't really feel like I was that great of a writer when I was in middle school and early high school. And I had written a bunch of sci-fi. I was trying to write a sci-fi novel, and I remember showing it to my dad. Now, of course, full disclosure, the thing sounded exactly like Star Wars, and it didn't go anywhere. I didn't have a whole, I wasn't that good back then. Lots of practice. But the point I'm trying to make is I wrote this sci-fi script, and it literally was written out like a movie script. And I remember I walked into the kitchen and my dad was eating, and I gave it to him and I said, "Can you read this? What do you think?" It totally reeked of Han Solo and Chewbacca and Star Wars and all this sort of stuff. My dad just immediately said, "This is great. Keep going."
Yeah.
And, you know, he didn't offer a whole lot more than that.
So he lied to you.
But I didn't need a whole lot. He probably did. But I didn't need much more than that, because my dad told me, keep going. This is great. So that's what I needed to kind of say, okay, maybe I'm on the right track here. And I was older. But, you know, like I'm working with, you know, a 10-year-old versus him. He was working with more like a 13, 14-year-old. But
what's the difference?
It's the same thing. Wow. And so if you can get them into a creative space, writing is a great way to express yourself, whether you have a specific reason, like you want to write a book, or you struggle with sharing some deep down thoughts, maybe some of your anxieties, your concerns, your worries, getting it out. That's why people have diaries. They you know, they do these sorts of things. I'm a huge promoter of that sort of stuff, and it would work great for dads, not just for working with their kids, but also for themselves. Yeah, because dads have down moments. Dads cry. Dads go through anxiety and depression and stress from work or from other factors, life, and just life in general. And so writing is a very therapeutic way to get out all of your thoughts and ideas. And who knows, maybe through that process, you may say, hey, I can help out other dads, or, hey, this would be beneficial to share to a much larger audience because I'm experiencing this. Oh, that's cool, and I can tell it through my own way. Books about writing and editing, there's tons out there. Stephen King, there's tons of books out there. I have my own way of approaching this book because, and I didn't write it as a boring textbook. I wrote it from the standpoint of, okay, my journey from, this kid that really wasn't a writer and didn't have any interest in it, to all of a sudden taking my innate love of storytelling and using the written word to be able to do that. And so it relates to people. It relates to a lot of people who maybe they didn't realize they had that writing bone in them, and they want to do it, or maybe they're afraid to put themselves out there for people to read their stuff. They get worried about, oh my gosh, are people going to think I'm a fraud? Do they think I'm horrible at grammar? Are they going to make fun of me? That sort of stuff. To everything from overcoming writer's block, writing that next great American novel, improving how you write, avoiding wordiness, stuff like that, getting published. So that's how I took something that I love, and I wrote it from my own perspective. Yeah. And I think a lot of dads out there, they have great stories in them, like you've been saying this whole time. And maybe it's something that they're experiencing that they can turn into something that helps other dads or a much larger audience.
Big facts. Like, man, that was, we've talked about.
Blow your mind?
No, you didn't blow my mind. you just tickled it a little bit. That was weird.
That was weird.
It's fine. That's my show. I don't care. But I love how you like really walked everybody through the writing process and like where to get started, how, step by step and how to do that. But then too, how do we cultivate that next generation of writers and of storytellers? Because I mean, let's be real. Like the fact that you write a book or the fact that you have a story doesn't mean that it has to be written. So like there are people out there that they can do this. There are content creators out there on social media land that can take, a script and make it a YouTube series or a bunch of TikToks or something like that. And so I love the way you really kind of broke it down and made it so simplistic. We're about to get out of here. We're at the beautiful 551 Event Center in Louisville, Texas. If you're in Louisville and you need a space to host an event, check this out. That's a plug. But the last question that I have before we get out of here is you touched on it briefly. For those people, what would you say to those people that are scared what other people might think? Because that's real. Like people, we write a book and I don't know if us as humans, we don't feel worthy or we might not feel like people value what we have to say or, oh, nobody cares. You know what I mean? So like, what would you say to those people?
The snarky people out there would say, well, don't care about what other people think. That's an easy, quick answer, but it's easier said than done, right? I mean, you really do worry about this sort of stuff. And it doesn't matter whether you're an aspiring writer or you've never written before, or you're 20 years down the road in your writing career. I still get nervous whenever I have stuff published. And I was worried about this book when it came out. Would it succeed? Would it actually do what I believed that it would do? So it's a real thing, like you were saying. My approach has always been believe in yourself first and foremost, believe in the story that you're trying to tell, be authentic about it, and share it in a way that is true to you and yourself. And at the end of the day, you're going to end up having a much better time being able to share that, a much easier time being able to share that with people than you give yourself credit for. There are a ton of tips in my book. I actually devoted an entire chapter to overcoming your fear of writing. And it start because I want to take people on a journey through my with this book. And where do you start? You start with, okay, well, do I have the chops to be a writer? What do I do when somebody gives a negative review of whatever my poem or whatever it is that I wrote? How do I handle that? I have always tried to put myself in a position that whatever feedback I get, good, bad, or indifferent, I'm going to embrace it as much as I possibly can.
That's good.
We all want to have the sunshine and rainbows. People say, "Oh my gosh, Josh, your book is amazing. I have no problems with it. You're the world's greatest writer." Where you can really improve as a writer is when people say, "Your book is good, but you missed. I really wish that you would have dove into this a little bit more," or "This, I don't know if this is expressed the right way," or "This is horrible. You need to crumple it up." Hopefully you never hear that. But, the point is that when you get constructive feedback or even mean-spirited feedback, take that and find out, okay, what can I do to improve upon this? How much of what they said is accurate? Because sometimes you get negative reviews and it's not worth a grain of salt. But other times, okay, who did I get the review from? Okay, I really admire that person. They're legit trying to help me. I didn't like hearing it, but I'm going to take their advice and I'm going to try to find a way to incorporate some of the things that they're saying and try to make my writing a little bit better. I don't need mentors.
I was like, but you know what you said though, like, hopefully you never hear that someone tells you to crumple up and throw it away. I don't think that even matters because, I'm gonna use this word. I just want to use it, but I want to point out to the world that I know that's not a word. Irregardless,
I saw an article where they were trying to add irregardless to the dictionary, and I about threw up in my mouth. I was like, "That's not a word."
Irregardless of whether people tell you to throw it away or not, like I think as writers or as anything in the world, Like, we have to understand, they say the hardest karate belt to get is the white belt, because you got to get in the building to get the white belt.
Sure.
Right. And so if someone tells you that your writing is absolutely horrible, like, what does it matter? Like, at least you've taken the step to write something.
Exactly.
So you've already accomplished more than
and that's just one person.
Yeah.
Stephen King has gone on record in the past with he's amazing, an amazing writer, but early on in his career, his rejection letters were all over the place. They were mounting up. And you know what he said? He goes, all I do is just, stamp it to the wall and I move on. And I believe in myself.
That's the show, guys.
Yeah. And so there's going to be people out there that aren't going to write like, it may be your writing style. It may be the topic doesn't resonate with them, whatever. But if you run into that, that's okay. That one person or two people, they don't represent your audience or the grand scheme of things.
Big facts.
Because you could have two people that don't like your writing, and you could have 1 million people who absolutely adore everything that you put out.
And that will pay in full cash money for your book. Yes. Well, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on. You. Where can everybody find you? Where can they find you? You said where we can find the book, but I don't know do you have your own website?
I have my own website. It's editthisllc.com. Okay. I'm all over social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all under Edit This. They can also find me as Steve Gamel, but Edit This has a presence on all the social media platforms. I actually just started a TikTok too, which I'm still learning. So maybe wait a couple of months before you go look me up on TikTok, and then it might be pretty good.
What are you going to do TikTok for book? You know what? I'm interested.
Clever ideas. I get my kids involved is what I do.
Aha.
So
you're a pimp. I'm just kidding.
No, but I get my kids to, do some fun stuff. And
Ross told me on his show 2 weeks ago that I can hire my kids as models and write them off as employees. I knew I can write them off, but I didn't know I could hire them as models to reduce my tax.
I did not know that, but I do. We mentioned my 10-year-old Jackson earlier. I call him my Chief Smiles Officer, and I will utilize him as much as I possibly can in anything, especially in video content that I put out there, or photos, just because everybody loves a cute face.
Ross hired his daughter to be his office janitor.
Hey.
She vacuums, she takes out the trash, she does. And she's on staff.
And there's a tax
benefit to that. What? So
that's genius.
Hire him as Chief Smiles. There you go. That's $12,000 a year write-off. Not a write-off because you still got to pay it, but anyways, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's where they can find you. So you guys go check him out. He's all over social media. Check out his TikTok, even though he doesn't really have anything. But
there's 7 videos on there. Cut me some.
So like I said, he doesn't have anything on there. But make sure you like this podcast, subscribe to the podcast, share the podcast, share it with 3,000 people, because out of those 3,000 people, there's going to be 2 people that want to write something. They need to talk to Steve Gamel. But until next week, take care. God bless. We love you.